increased homocysteine in the blood. Okay. So if the vitamin B12 is not there, methylmalonyl-CoA cannot be converted into succinyl-malonyl-CoA.
Yeah.
So methylmalonyl-CoA level increases in the blood, and if it is increases in the blood, it goes to the urine and converted. It goes to the kidney, converted into methylmalonic acid and excreted out. Okay. So in the urine, we will be seeing more methylmalonic acid. Okay, only three substances you have to keep. Okay, homocysteine, methylmalonyl-CoA, and methylmalonic acid in the urine. Once again, I am telling, in the blood, homocysteine is increased, methylmalonyl-CoA is increased. In the urine, methylmalonic acid is increased. Okay, so in the end, vitamin B12. At least you remember this. Vitamin. Actually, we discussed a lot about these things. Vitamin B12 and folic acid join together and used for the DNA synthesis. Okay, how it get absorbed? Okay.
Doctor, how DUMB compare to DTMB?
You are asking the entire lecture again. Okay. Vitamin B12 and folic acid. Vitamin B12 and folic acid. You come to me secondly. Okay. Vitamin B12 and folic acid. How it gets absorbed is very important. So vitamin B12 is present in the food. Once it enters the oral cavity, our salivary gland secretes many substances. One of the substances is R binder. Okay, that R binder and the food enters the stomach. Then the stomach digests the food, breaks the food, and vitamin B12 is released. Immediately the vitamin B12 joins with R binder and they form a complex. Okay, once they form the complex, they enter the duodenum. Once they enter the duodenum, the protease come and they break it, and again vitamin B12 R binder gets break, and the R binder joins the intrinsic factor which is secreted by the stomach, and they all go to the ileum, and intrinsic factor attaches with the ileal cell and it is taken back. Okay, so in this whole process, if you know anything damage the salivary gland, it will not produce R binder, it will not, vitamin B12 cannot be absorbed. Anything damage the stomach, again vitamin B12 is completely stopped because there is no intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor is very much essential because deficiency of intrinsic factor itself produces a different type of anemia called pernicious anemia. Okay, and that will completely interfere in the vitamin B12 absorption. Okay, and anything damage to the pancreas, automatically pancreas cannot secrete protease, and vitamin B12 and R binder cannot be broken, and vitamin B12 cannot be released to join with the intrinsic factor. Okay, ileum gets damaged, then ileum cannot absorb the vitamin B12. So these cells, if there is vitamin B12 deficiency, the cell cannot mature. They keep on growing, they will not divide. So that's why they produce very large RBCs, and the RBCs become very large, and that is called round macroocyte if it is round. If it is very large and big, it is called oval macrocytes. So these are the reasons for the deficiencies. And vitamin B12 deficiency especially produce CNS manifestation. Okay, and the CNS manifestation is maybe it will be affecting the higher centers of the brain, or it will affect the peripheral nervous system. Okay, so that's why we get peripheral neuropathy and something related to the altered sensorium because it affects the higher centers of the brain. Okay, so MCV will be decreased or increased in this case. They have big RBC. Increase. So MCV will be increased, and MCHC will be normal, and you will be seeing other cells like basophilic stippling. See, where I am given here. This is very important. As I explained during the how the vitamin B12 metabolism, serum methylmalonic acid is increased and increased serum homocysteine. Okay. So these are the different types of RBCs seen in the vitamin B12 deficiency in megaloblastic anemia. So if you see blue color dot, that is called Howell-Joel bodies, and many small blue color dots, that is called basophilic stippling, and if you see a ring, it is called Cabo's ring. Okay, and in the bone marrow, everything becomes very large. Okay, so this is very important. Hypersegmented neutrophil is very important because that may be the only early sign of vitamin B12 deficiency. Okay, because you may not see big RBCs, but you may see this one. This is enough evidence to start vitamin B12 and folic acid therapy. Understand? So a good physician will know this. They will give vitamin B12 and folic acid therapy. Okay. So how to diagnose megaloblastic anemia? They are very large RBCs, macrocytes. They have oval-shaped RBCs, ovulocytes, and they have hypersegmented neutrophil. Once again, it's worth mentioning. Hypersegmented neutrophils are very important. You should know it is the earliest sign of vitamin B12 deficiency of megaloblastic anemia. Okay. So all the RBC bone marrow, all the RBC cells becomes very big. Okay. So pernicious anemia is due to intrinsic factor deficiency. Okay, due to intrinsic factor deficiency and autoimmune destruction of the parietal cells in the stomach. Okay, because this is the cell produces intrinsic factor. Okay, and this is very important because sometimes the parasitic infection in the gastrointestinal tract, they damage the gastrointestinal tract and they will cause small blood going in the feces. Okay, that causes blood loss, anemia. Understand? But this infection is very different. Okay, this infection use the vitamin B12 and they grow, they survive. Okay, so they interfere in the vitamin B12 absorption. Understand? The little bit different pathogenesis. Okay, that infection is called tape. Colloquially, we call it as a tapeworm infection. Actually, if you eat beef and pork, alhamdulillah, we don't eat. So, for beef eaters, this infection comes. Okay, because sometimes if you don't cook the beef properly, you get that parasite inside our body. Okay, so that's why it's very important. They take vitamin B12 from us, from our food, and they will live happily. Okay, so tapeworm infection causes vitamin B12 deficiency. Okay, if you remove the stomach, if you remove the stomach, what are the deficiencies we can get?
Anemia.
Of course, anemia. What are the anemia?
Intrinsic factor.
So why there is iron deficiency? Because food cannot break and soluble and insoluble form cannot form.
No pepsin.
Right? And no acid and no pepsin. But vitamin B12 in vitamin B12 deficiency, intrinsic factor is not produced. That is also very important.
So it will lead to
So it leads to like a pernicious anemia. They have very severe anemia, and we cannot treat them orally. So we have to treat them parenteral route. Okay. Okay. So pancreatic diseases cannot produce proteases, so they will form vitamin B12 absorption because proteases is needed for what?
For breakdown of R.
R binder and vitamin B12 complex. Okay. So now coming to the normocytic normochromic anemia. Normocytic normochromic anemia. See, when you see a normocytic normochromic anemia, for example, a 25 years male, okay, or female, and first thing you should rule out. You know rule out? Yes. First thing you should rule out is thalassemia minor. Okay, because thalassemia minor has to be ruled out in any circumstances in this country. Okay, because they are the carriers. Okay, even though they go for screening, they may go for late stages. Okay, early you have to detect them and you tell them what is thalassemia minor. Okay, they should not marry a thalassemia minor. That is the main thing. Okay, you have to tell them, you have to advise them, but we cannot force them, right? But we have to advise them in such a way that they should understand the problem of the community of their children if they have thalassemia. Okay, so in any adult, okay, young adult having a normocytic normochromic and less hemoglobin, don't take it very easily. Okay, it is your responsibility to rule out thalassemia minor. Okay, and anemia of chronic diseases produces normocytic normochromic anemia. Any chronic disease produces some kind of anemia. Basically, one of the mechanism is basically they make the liver to produce hepcidin that will block the ferroportinin 1. Okay, given here. Okay, epsilon, which in turn blocks the ion release from the intestinal epithelium through the ferroportin-1. Okay, so actually there will be having a high serum ferritin level. Okay, so aplastic anemia refers to when anything damage to the stem cell, they produce severe form of anemia. It may be of virus or it may be of some chemical substances in the form of drug. If you give, that may destroy the stem cells and they produce severe form of anemia, because it's not anemia. Okay, they decrease all the cells, blood cells, from the RBCs to platelets, RBCs, WBCs, platelets. So it produces pancytopenia. Okay, so pure red cell aplasia. This some, for example, there are some drugs also, but most common nowadays this virus is getting important. Okay, so now the main, everybody is focusing on this virus because of HIV infection. This virus rate is increased now. Okay, parvovirus P19, which affects the precursors. Precursors means what?
Precursor?
Means the pre cells of the RBC.
The immature cells.
Immature cells. Okay. So immature cells of RBC means what? Especially pro-normoblast, early normoblast, intermediate normoblast, late normoblast. So this virus goes to those nucleus and they love to stay there and they destroy them. So automatically only red cell goes down. Understand? That's why they call it as a pure red cell aplasia. Understand? So this virus is very important. Okay. What is primary myeloproliferative anemia? Any cancer goes to the marrow, destroys the marrow, or any infection goes to the marrow, destroys the marrow, which produces anemia. That is called myeloproliferative anemia. When the RBCs becomes old, they go to the spleen, they will be removed by the splenic macrophage. When the RBCs enter the splenic macrophage take them and break them into heme. The hemoglobin is broken down into heme and globin enters the amino acid pool. And heme is divided further to form iron and porphyrin. The porphyrin is converted into unconjugated bilirubin, and unconjugated bilirubin comes out and they bind with albumin. Okay, and when they are binding with albumin, then they will be taken by the liver, and liver conjugate it and they form the conjugated bilirubin, and it comes out and enter the biliary system. Once they enter the biliary system, the bacterial in the intestine converts them into urobilinogen, and the urobilinogen 90% is enters out from the T cells. So that's why they are yellow in color, and 10% enters the circulation and excreted in the urine. Okay, so that's why urine also yellow in color. So in intravascular hemolysis, the RBC breaks down inside the vessel. Okay, and the tetramer is converted into dimer, and the dimer binds with haptoglobin, and with haptoglobin they will be taken by the liver cell. Again they become unconjugated, conjugated and excreted out. Okay, so if there is severe intravascular hemolysis, more hemoglobin comes out. So some of the hemoglobin enters the kidney and that will be excreted out and in the urine. So we call them as a hemoglobinuria. Okay. So during this process they damage the kidney. Okay. So when there is hemolysis, serum unconjugated bilirubin is increased, urine urobilinogen is increased. Okay. So the serum haptoglobin is very important. If it is normal or if it is normal, it means that it is extravascular hemolysis. If it is decreased, it is intravascular hemolysis. To identify the intravascular hemolysis, we have this protein. If you check it, if it is decreased, it is intravascular hemolysis. Okay. So any defect in the RBC will produce hemolysis. Whether it is an enzyme defect, whether it is a membrane defect, whether it is a hemoglobin defect. Okay. So Sometimes the defect may be outside RBC. Okay, that is called extra corpuscular defect. For example, immune hemolytic anemia.